Okay, I am here with Ed Rossman, and he is the author of A Guy's Guide to Throat Cancer. Ed, thank you, first of all, for doing this with me. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then also about your book.
Okay, well, I'm a retired librarian, spent 25 years giving books to people, and I had an opportunity to be able to write a few of my own on library operations. And about myself, basically, I am a cancer survivor. That's what the book's about. And the book is basically a memoir. It's based on Caring Bridge platform journal entries that I did while I was going through treatments. We had just lost my sister, just as I was diagnosed with cancer. We had lost my sister Betty to a brain tumor. And people were very afraid that I was going to be next. And we had communication issues because Betty had to go to so many different hospitals that it was tough keeping all her friends in the loop. So I used the Caring Bridge platform, and I used I had about 30 entries, and I invited people, all my colleagues, work colleagues, not necessarily my Facebook buddies, but they joined too. It was a really good experience to have. And I basically went through my experiences with the medical system, radiation, and chemotherapy, and kept everybody apprised. But I was honest about what was going on with me, but I also was funny and tried to be present some information and inspiration to those folks in kind of a light manner. And then I wanted to share it after I was done with treatments. When I went back to work, everybody said, "Ed, we're glad you're well, but gosh, we're going to miss all those posts that you were doing." And I said, well, okay, it's good to know. So I was going to just compile them in a PDF file, but I saw some ads for the Christian Faith Publishing organization, and I contacted them, and I decided that we should do a book on it. And that way I could share it with all my friends who had supported me, as well as all the strangers and all the tens of thousands of people who go through cancer and COVID and everything else that's out there these days. It's not just for throat cancer, although it does talk quite a bit about that.
Yeah, well, what's cool, I think, about your book, from my understanding, is that you really present this information in a way that is cool and interesting for guys to read. And you use a lot of interesting analogies like sports and all sorts of things. Can you give us an example of something in your book that you've written in a way that's super relatable to guys that are going through difficult times?
Well, if you look at my cover, it's got first of all, it's got the cross on there. That was my scaffolding of support. And then the other elements, the dartboard represents my experiences with chemotherapy. I have a dear lady friend who just yesterday had to do a blood test, and she drank a gallon of water, and they still had trouble finding her veins. And I did not want to necessarily go through all that, so I had them put a port in my chest. They offered it to me. I said, yeah, absolutely, to help me through chemotherapy. The missiles, those represent an AC/DC music video when I was talking about radiation treatments. And one of my librarian friends said, "Oh, Ed, you're such a guy. If you Google AC/DC military montage, it shows this 4-minute video of all these like jets and gunships and everything shooting at targets." And I said, this is what I hope the radiation's doing to my cancer cells. The other things that was on there, like for the weights for nutrition, I talk about Tom Brady being like, he is the oldest NFL quarterback, and he attributes his longevity, among other things, to hydration, how important it is. And guys can relate to that. And then with the rocking guitar that I had on there, basically I used music videos all throughout my Caring Bridge journal entries. So I used the Rolling Stones, Gimme Shelter, the Tom Petty, The Waiting, the Smoothie song by Nickel Creek, because that was on the little journal entry I had about progressing to smoothies when I was able to not do necessarily the regular food tube stuff. I talk about the Lenten, how I went through it during the Lenten season, which was very inspirational to me, talking about sacrifice and being persistent and stuff. When I went for the blessing of the throats, I went and talked to the priest, and I said afterwards, I was going to lift off my shirt and have you bless my food tube, but I figured I didn't want to scare you. And he laughed and he said, "Oh, that's okay, Ed. It's a one-size-fits-all blessing." And so there's stories about that, of the different feast days that I was reading a magazine called The Word, and it's distributed, and it has a daily mass readings for the Catholic Mass in there. And I was quarantined basically for about 3 months. So I was like reading these things every day to keep up with what's going on. And it's, like I said earlier, it's a book about, basically, it's informational and it's inspirational.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's a fun read, but it's also packed with things that people can really take, and probably not just guys that are going through cancer or health problems, but also their caregivers, because sometimes it's the ladies that are caring for those guys, and you've provided a really interesting way for them to be able to talk about some of this stuff.
Oh yeah. It's really a challenge to get this book out there, not only with all the libraries and bookstores being closed right now, but it's also guys really don't pick up books. I'm an anomaly because I was a librarian and I did my research. And when I researched, I could not find any good book out there about throat cancer, and definitely nothing like a chicken soup series even. And unfortunately, they're all academic. Now, most guys wouldn't be caught dead reading a chicken soup book. But that's why I named it A Guy's Guide to Throat Cancer, because it's basically guys are used to, there's a guy's guide to dating, about buying real estate, about investing. But it's the caregivers, the women in their lives, that I'm really trying to make aware of this book too. Because once they do, and then they can say, in the doctor's office, the guy might be blowing them off. I saw plenty of them when I was in chemotherapy, guys who were just like kind of ignoring the nurses. Mm-hmm. You know, there's one thing with the nurses here and the COVID. It's really brought to light how important all the healthcare workers are, and all the sacrifices and all the tough things that these nurses see, and they still go back into work day after day. So I gave the books to all my treatment teams, and also just to the I mentioned them a number of times in the book, and that's another thing going in there about teamwork and things like that. But it's the caregivers. Yeah, it's not for my sister and my girlfriend. I went to chemo class and I wasn't writing notes, but they were. And they knew about different types of things for, like cleaning my place and all that, I'm a guy, I never really worried about it that much, but I wish I would have listened to them more, because I did pick up an infection, and that's a story in the book that I say that basically, guys, don't make the same mistake I did. Don't do, it's do's and don'ts for a good recovery.
Yeah, and that's such
the subtitle, yeah. So it's basically how to get through cancer treatments easier and how to avoid complications.
That's in a really fun way to read about it, which is it's a subject matter that's not always fun to hear about, and definitely not fun to experience. So it's so cool that you've really made it into a book that can help people, that is a fun read, and that can take a negative experience and try to help them make it a positive one. I know you've published before because you're a librarian, but how was it publishing this book, and how was it working with Christian Faith Publishing?
Well, as far as inspiring, one more little thing from the book. It's a picture of me and my bro ringing the bell at the end of radiation treatments.
That's awesome.
And there's all sorts of pictures in there about the treatments and things. But with Christian Faith Publishing, they were very good. They had to put up with my any guy hates to get criticized, and following directions is tough. The editors, I feel for them, because I kept on saying, well, this shouldn't be, and they said, no, you should write it like that. And they had a challenge, because in my original entries for Caring Bridge, the book is divided up into each day, part A and part B, let's say. The extended version is what I call the second part, because extended versions are always pretty cool. But they originally passed through the book, and they said, oh, this guy he doesn't know how to write, because I just use abbreviated sentences and things in my Caring Bridge platform. I said, no, sorry guys, I really want to keep that. And they were very good about that, very patient, and pointed some things out even afterwards that were like, you might want to say it better like this. And so it was good. Any writer has a tough time sometimes taking criticism, but that's the same thing with my earlier books too. The editors are your angels on your shoulders, and they're overlooking you and like saying, okay, let's get this communicated. You want to communicate something? Here's the best way to do it. So they were very good about that.
Well, the book is called A Guy's Guide to Throat Cancer, and it's available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon and all the places where books are sold. Ed, thank you so much for doing this with me. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. Don't forget, people out there, that it's also an ebook. So you can get it for Kindle, you can get it for the Nooks, you can get it for the iPads. I know there's a lot of millennials out there, and sometimes even the dads, they may not want to read the book, but if they've got it on like a little phone, it may make it a lot easier for them to read through while they're waiting around for treatments.
Yeah, absolutely. So perfect. Thank you so much, Ed.